You translate it in English and then.
This is a question from Morocco.
Yes.
And he's asking about the meaning of the verse, the one he وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَكُمُ الطُّورَ.
رفعنا فوقكم الطور. You see, for every misaq there is a witness. When you go into a misaq, there has to be a witness. And the witness there was Toor standing over them, standing high over them. That indicated the greatness of the moment, indicated the grandeur of God. To them, the physical expression of that grandeur was that Toor was jutting out. It does not mean it was lifted, uprooted from the ground and put over their heads. It means Rafana fawqakum Toor. Toor was given ascendancy over you. For what? As a witness of that misaq. Like the Holy Quran repeatedly calls to witness the heavens, was-samaa'i zaatil hubuki, wal-mursalati urfan, and so many other verses of the Holy Quran, was-samaa'i zaatil buruji, and so on and so forth, call to witness the physical, universal things of grand expression and which are awe-bearing. So this calling to witness of Toor is perfectly in line with the Quranic style. So they were in the, on the foothill at the time when this misaq was taken from them. Above them rose the mountain of Toor. And it also happened that earthquake occurred. And when the earthquake occurs, the mountains really literally cover you. They tilt on this side and they tilt on that side. And sometimes they really cast a shadow over you. So this was to make them remember this moment. They were terribly awe-stricken. And they were overwhelmed by this grand experience that they are having a witness, having a bay'at to Allah and making a covenant with Allah, and at that time this happens. So if somebody must take it literally, it can be taken literally only in this sense. Not that it was uprooted and lifted and put over their head. God never does such things. So we believe that it must have been an earthquake which make it wobble in that direction, in that direction. And I have myself noticed this in the mountains. Sometimes as you walk through and there is an earthquake or some vibration, you feel as if the mountain is about to fall over your head. It's a very, in the Himalayas particularly, the experience is very awe-inspiring. Huge tall mountains jutting out, and a slight tilt due to earthquake causes them to completely overshadow the things underneath. So this is the scenario which has been presented by the Holy Quran. There is nothing of what they read in the books of commentary, that God lifted the whole Toor and put them over their head. This is an event of such such gigantic nature that if the whole Toor had been lifted out of its mooring, the whole earth should have suffered and wobbled and would be destroyed. Moreover, the Holy Quran speaks against this. وَأَرْسَاهَا, وہ پڑھے نا اور بھی ہے. The Holy Quran says that we have firmly mounted, firmly planted the mountains deep into the earth, and nothing can remove them. None, they will not be removed. They are firmly mounted, firmly rooted in the ground. So this scenario is a very childish scenario. Those who want halagula from God, sort of a magic show, they're impressed by this commentary. But it has no substance, this commentary. The substance is only in the verse of the Quran, which I have already explained with the help of other verses, which means at the time of the covenant, a witness is called. That witness rose above them in grandeur. It was awe-inspiring. And also it might have tilted over their heads out of an earthquake which may have taken place at that time. That was the moment when they were afraid for their lives, and that moment they never could forget again. So what a beautiful landmark for them to remember. Remember that when you promised and God gave you a taste of terror. And if you forget, we can do it again, This is the substance, the meaning, all the rest is stories. وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا. That is the meaning. And the mountains, we made them firm. That is firmly rooted. In other places, أَدْخَنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ wali ayat bhi hai. It also speaks of the mountains being firmly rooted, and that God, the same Creator, has done it, who has made everything with firmness and strength. So this uprooting of the mountain and then is being replaced without leaving any signs for the archaeologists to study, this is just a fiction. There is no reality in it. Please.
وذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين آيات أخرى.
That's quite sorry. Now, I said, I believe it could have happened that at that moment of taking of covenant, there was a great earthquake which tilted the mountain over their heads as if it was about to fall. That caused terror. Now, I have a supporting verse of the Holy Quran which presents such a possibility very clearly. And the verse is, وَاخْتَارَ مُوسَى قَوْمًا سَبْعِينَ رَجُلًا لِمِيقَاتِنَا. That appointed time where to meet God, 40 leaders of the house of Israel were taken by Moses to some place. And what happened there? فَلَمَّا أَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ قَالَ رَبِّ لَوْ شِئْتَ أَهْلَكْتَهُمْ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَإِيَّايَ. This is the same Toor which rose over their head. So there is no other point. Where did they go and for what for? The most important period in their history was the period, the time, most important time was time of covenant, which is mentioned also in the Bible with great emphasis. Therein lay the entire relationship of Israelites and the people of the book with God. So this miqatina must refer to the same event. And because it speaks of Rajfa, it speaks of the fear of their lives, fear of them for their lives. So it must apply to that Toor, Rafana Fawqakum Toor, because out of Rajfa, the Toor may tilt over and may appear to be standing above their heads. Right? Now this verse, I don't know who asked, but it could have implied, I don't know whether he meant this, but it could have been implied in this, that you say that Rafa is only Ruhani, and here we see the example of a physical Rafa. When God is fire, God is the one who does it, and apparently everybody understands this, that physically the mountain was lifted. No, physically lifted or not lifted, that is irrelevant. The point is that when I said Rafa means Ruhani, I also said in relation to man, not in relation to that thing. Rafa Samkaha, the Holy Quran says, Asmans are marfu. It also does not mean they were lifted from one place and removed to another. Their rifat only means remoteness. They are very remote from you. And their rifat does not indicate any direction. In all directions, anything which is remote from the earthly people is mentioned or described by the Quran as something which has been done rafa to, which has been lifted. So there too a movement is not mentioned anyway. It's the position it occupies. Al-Marfu there, the Holy Quran uses the word Al-Marfu in relation to the dead things. And there, Marfu means remote and much distant, very much distant. So if this is the implication, I have already answered. When God says, I have lifted that person, human being, there it does not mean that he physically lifts him, particularly if the word Sama is used, because Sama is in all directions. Right? Now 2 verses I can quote from Surah Ra'd, verse 2. Allahu allazi rafa samawati bighayri amadin tarawnaha. Rafa samawati does not mean that they were lifted from earth up to that place which they occupy. Then they were made high or distant from you. Bighayri amadin tarawnaha. They do not lean on any pillars which you can see. But the pillars on which they lean are the invisible pillars of gravitation from all sides. They bind them. So this is again the beauty of the Quran. It speaks of something, a phenomenon which was not understood at that time by even the most scholarly person, the greatest scientist, that there was an invisible force binding the heavenly bodies together. So here Rafa does not mean lifting, it means a remote occupation, distant occupation. أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءَ بَنَاهَا رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. Here again, Rafa Samkaha doesn't mean that it was lifted from the earth, all the heaven was piled upon earth, and from here God starting lifting them and spreading them in this place. It does not mean that at all. So, but I don't know whether this was meant by him or not. Additionally, I have offered this information. Now there is one verse which is also very relevant, in fact more relevant than any other verse, to the issue of the bodily lifting of Jesus Christ. And that verse is about Hazrat Idris. While in relation to Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, the Holy Quran did not say that we lifted him to heaven. It says, Bal rafahu Allahu ilayhi. And because God is there, was there, will always be there, where Jesus was. So he cannot move bodily from one place to another. Well, lifting towards God while God is there cannot permit any movement of the body. But in one place it is likely for the ulama to translate it as physical lifting. That verse relates to Hazrat Idris. It says, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِدْرِيسَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. And we lifted him to a very high place, high abode, high place. Now, some ulama quote is in support of their claim that Jesus was bodily lifted. So Idris was lifted, why not Jesus? But the problem for them is that Idris is never mentioned to have returned to earth, nor is ever promised to return to earth. So, فِيهَا تَحْيَوْنَ وَفِيهَا تَمُوتُونَ وَمِنْهَا تُخْرَجُونَ. It is impossible for us to believe that Idris disappeared into the heaven and died there, never to return to earth. If they say he will, then why don't they wait for 2 prophets instead of 1? That would be a much better case for the Muslims if they are supported by 2 lifted prophets who are sent back to earth instead of 1. Both will support each other. But where has he gone? That is the issue. So Rafana wa Makanan Aliyya means he raised his status. He raised his status because Idris was also one of the prophets, which from this verse I infer, but I am going to have more research on this. I have not yet made full research on Hazrat Idris. But we know one man in the Bible. Could this Idris refer to him? This is the question. Who was supposed to have been lifted, sitting in his chariot, fiery chariot, up to the heaven? And that was Elia, the one who was to come back to earth. So if this is Idris, then the problem is already resolved. The issue is decided. The verdict has been issued. By whom? By Hazrat Jesus Christ himself. Because when the Jews talked of a prophet who had been lifted bodily up, they also spoke of his descent. They also told the Jewish world that one day he would descend, and this would indicate that the days of the Messiah are close at hand. Messiah won't come much later after that. He's about to appear. Now, they quoted this to Hazrat Masih, objecting against his claim. They say, all right, if you are that Messiah who is mentioned in the Old Testament, then where is that Elijah, who was to come before you? The verdict that was given by Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, was that John the Baptist is that Elia. Believe it or not, it's up to you. So he descended, but not bodily from the heaven, because he was never lifted bodily. He was lifted spiritually, so he descended spiritually in the form of John, Hazrat Yahya, who was born here out of a mother, human mother. So all these verses are interrelated. Any man who wants to really understand the meaning of the Quran should read similar verses in other places and connect them with history. Then he can always be led to the right path. But I'll have further research whether Idris is the same person or not. Right. We take leave of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And why are you so quiet these days? You never participate in this. You represent a large Somalian community here in this country, don't you? Correct. And they are very knowledgeable people, very scholarly people, I have noticed. They love the Quran, they know the Quran, and they ask many interesting religious questions. So why don't you inquire from them about what has been agitating their minds? And in that way we'll have some more questions added to this. Right? Right. Assalamu alaikum.